Hello everyone, welcome to Brain Blitz Audios. Today in this episode of NEET preparation, we're going to be looking at some questions of biology which were asked in previous years of NEET. NEET is the exam that's used for gaining admission to medical courses in India, and so therefore this series is dedicated to explaining questions asked in previous papers so that you have a good chance of acing those exams. Today we're going to be looking at the chapter The Living World. This is the first chapter which is found in the grade 12 syllabus for CBSE, and this chapter is the base for all the chapters that come ahead. So this chapter is very important, and today we're going to be looking at some questions. Our first question was asked in 2016. The label of a herbarium sheet does not contain information on the date of collection, the name of the collector, the local names, and the height of the plant. So, in order to understand what the question is talking about, we need to know what's a herbarium sheet, and the label. So, a herbarium is a location where plants are stored, and these plants are first dried up and then they are stored in sheets which are called herbarium sheets. So each herbarium sheet contains a particular specimen, and it also has a label, and that label gives us more information about what species is present in the herbarium sheet. Now, if you were to look at the NCERT textbook, page number 12, you can see that the herbarium sheets also carry a label providing information about date and place of collection, English, local, and botanical names, families, collector names, etc. They are also quick referral systems in order to study taxonomy. So date of collection has to be present because they need to know how old the specimen is. The name of collector is also present so that it tells us who collected the specimen. And since the plant has different names, they give local names as well as English names. Also, the scientific name is given for that particular species. But since different organisms might be in different stages of growth, option D, height of the plant, is not given. So option D, height of the plant, is the piece of information that is not usually recorded in the label of a herbarium sheet. Now let's look at another question. This one is also asked in 2016. Match column 1 with column 2 for the classification of a housefly, and select the correct option using the codes given below. So in column 1 we have A, B, C, D representing family, order, class, and phylum respectively. And column 2 contains, those Latin names: Diptera, Arthropoda, Mucidae, and Insecta. Now, we're dealing with houseflies, and we know that housefly is an example for an insect, and we also know that organisms such as insects are present in phylum Arthropoda, because this phylum is the largest, contains the most amount of species in the animal kingdom, and it contains insects and other related species such as spiders. So therefore, since housefly is an insect, it has to be present in phylum Arthropoda. So that means we can easily, associate phylum, that is D, with Arthropoda, that's 2. Now, when you're usually doing questions like these, people tend to check out each of the following options and move along with it. But here we can use the policy of elimination. So elimination is basically finding relations between one or maybe two of the elements in question, and then using those two elements, eliminate the options which are incorrect. Now, in this particular example, we know that insects are in phylum Arthropoda and housefly is an insect. So that means D2 must be present in the correct option. And if you look at the following options, you can see that options B, C, and D are incorrect because they have D as other numbers. The code D2 is present only in option A, and that's why it is the correct option. So you know that since housefly is an insect, we know that the class of housefly will be Insecta. And if you're confused about whether A and B are exactly the same code, you can just look at the table for the organism with their taxonomic categories. This is present in the NCERT. And if you look at housefly, the genus is Musca and the family is Mucidae, so A3 is correct. And you have order Diptera, so that means B1 is also correct. So that means option A is the correct option. Now, let's look at this question. This is also asked in 2016. Study the four statements, A, B, C, and D, and select the two correct ones out of them. The definition of a biological species was given by Ernst Mayr. This statement is true. Now, statement B says that photoperiod does not affect reproduction in plants. This statement is false because photoperiod, that refers to the amount of light received by the plant, affects both the growth of the plant as well as its reproduction. So the photoperiod tells the plant whether it's summer or winter, and some species need a lot of photoperiod before reproduction. Others need a lot of photoperiod so that they can grow better. So statement number B is false. Now, what about C? Binomial nomenclature system was given by R.H. Whitaker. Again, this statement is false. Binomial nomenclature was first given by Linnaeus. So Linnaeus was the scientist who gave us the binomial nomenclature system, so statement C is also false. In unicellular organisms, reproduction is synonymous with growth. So this is statement D, and this statement is true because in unicellular organisms, they grow by fission, and their reproduction also occurs through fission. So in unicellular organisms, if you undergo fission, you grow and you also reproduce at the same time. So therefore, statements A and D are the correct statements. So if you were to look at the following options, you can see that option C is the correct option. In option A, it says that B is correct, which is wrong. In option B, it says that C is correct, which is wrong. And in option D, it says that B is correct, which is wrong. So therefore, option C contains the two correct statements, statements A and D. Let's look at this question. Nomenclature is governed by certain universal rules. Which one of the following is contrary to the rules of nomenclature? The names are written in Latin and are italicized. When written by hand, the names are to be underlined. Biological names can be written in any language. The first word in a biological name represents its genus, and the second is a specific epithet. So let's refer to the textbook. So in page 7, you can see that it deals with the rules of nomenclature, and here you can find the extract for nomenclature. Let's look at each of our options. Option A says the names are written in Latin and are italicized. This corresponds with statement 1 in the extract. So option A is incorrect because this statement happens to be true. We're looking for the false statement because here it says which one of the following is contrary. Contrary means opposed to, so basically we're looking for the false statement. Now let's look at option B. When written by hand, the names are to be underlined. And if you can look at statement number 3 here, in the extract it says when handwritten are separately underlined, so therefore option B is wrong because the statement is true. Now, what about option D? The first word in a biological name represents the genus, and the second is a specific epithet. If you look at the paragraph above, Mangifera represents genus, that's the first name. Indica is a particular species or specific epithet. So option D is also wrong because the statement is true. So that means the correct answer, that means the false statement, is option C. Biological names can be written in any language. This statement is wrong because in binomial nomenclature, we only write Latin names or Latinized names. So that means if, for example, if some plant is named after a very famous scientist, the name of the scientist is Latinized so that it confirms with binomial nomenclature. So therefore, the correct answer, the contrary statement, is option C. Biological names can be written in any language. Let's look at the next question. Which one of the following is not a correct statement? So it's pretty important to underline that particular word, not, because then we have to look for the wrong statement and not the correct one. So let's look at each of our options. Option D says botanical gardens have a collection of living plants for reference, and this is correct because the primary function of botanical gardens is ex situ conservation as well as study. So therefore option D is a correct statement. It's a true statement, so that means the option is incorrect. What about option C? Herbarium houses dried, pressed, and preserved plant specimens. This statement is true because in a herbarium sheet, you find the plant species dried, pressed, and preserved. So therefore, option C is incorrect. What about option B? Key is a taxonomical aid for identification of specimens. Again, this is true. Keys are analytical tools which contains questions that can be used for identifying a particular species. So that means option B is incorrect. The correct answer is option A. A museum has a collection of photographs of plants and animals. Now, this statement isn't entirely true. The reason being that museums do not contain just photographs. They also contain preserved as well as stuffed specimens of plants and animals. So you have models of these animals which are stuffed, and you also have preserved fossils at museums. So therefore, it's not just photographs that you can find at a museum. So therefore, option A is the incorrect statement, which is what the question is asking. We need to find the incorrect statement among the following options. So therefore, option A is the correct option for this question, which was asked in 2013. Next question. The common characteristics between a tomato and a potato will be maximum at the level of their A. family, B. order, C. division, D. genus. So, how do we solve this question? It's a good idea to compare the biological classification of both a potato and a tomato. So we take potato here and we take tomato in the second column, and we will list out each of the taxonomic categories in rows. So if you look at kingdom, both the tomato and potato belong to the kingdom Plantae. So this applies to both columns. Now, if you were to look at the second taxonomic category, for animals, it's phylum, but for plants, it's division. So if you look at the division for both potato and tomato, it will be angiospermae. Both the potato and the tomato are angiosperms, so that means they're related. Now, what about class? the third taxonomic category. Both potato and tomato belong to the class Eudicots, so both of them are dicotyledonous in their seeds, so therefore, so far, they're identical. I mean, they are related. Now, what about order? In the taxonomic category of order, we can see that both the potato and tomato belong to the order Solanalis. And now we can move on to the family. If we look at family, both of them, both the potato and tomato, belong to the family Solanaceae. So that means they have the same family. They belong to the same family. But when we look at genus, we can find that the potatoes genus is Solanum, while the tomatoes genus has been changed recently to Lycopersicum. So that means at the genus level, they both belong to the different genuses. If we look at species, the scientific name of potato is Solanum tuberosum, so tuberosum is the species for potato, and for tomato it's Lycopersicum esculentum, so esculentum is the name of the species. So, as you can see, for both potato and tomato, they belong to kingdom Plantae, division Angiospermae, class Eudicots, order Solanalis, and family Solanaceae. So they belong to the same family, and when you look at common characteristics between any two plants, the common characteristics become maximum as they move down along the taxonomic categories. So for example, for two plant species who are both belonging to kingdom Plantae, but their other taxonomic categories are different, they have very few common characteristics. However, in this particular case, if they are belonging to the same family, that means they have more common characteristics. So basically, the common characters increase as we move down the taxonomic category. So since both the potato and tomato belong to the same family, the highest amount of common characters will occur in option A, family. Now, the reason why this is true is because when they are belonging to the same family, they are already similar to the earlier conditions. So like conditions for being in kingdom Plantae, being in division Angiospermae. So they're all angiosperms, they're all dicots, they're all belonging to Solanalis, and they also have common characteristics to belong to the family Solanaceae. So that means the common characteristics are maximum at the point of the least taxonomic category where they are both related. So that means option A, family, will be correct for this question, which was asked in 2013. Now, let's look at this particular question. Which one of the following organisms is scientifically correctly named, correctly printed according to their international rules, and correctly described? So, we have four options. Option A says Musca domestica, the common house lizard, a reptile. So, if you look at the name, Musca domestica, it's correctly printed, but you can see that it's written the common house lizard. Now, this option is incorrect because Musca domestica is the scientific name of the housefly and not the lizard. So it's not a reptile as well. It's an insect. So option A is incorrect. Now let's look at option D. E. coli, full name Entamoeba coli, a commonly occurring bacterium in human intestines. Well, the the name E. coli is correct, and E. coli is a commonly occurring bacterium in human intestines, but its full name is incorrectly given in the options. In the option, it's given Entamoeba coli. The correct name for E. coli is Escherichia coli. So it's Escherichia coli. So that means option D is incorrect because the full name, the scientific name, is incorrect. Now what about option C? Felis tigris, the Indian tiger, well protected in Gir forests. Well, tigers are present in India, so it's possible that there are some tigers in Gir forests, but they're mostly containing the Asiatic lions. So that's one problem. Another problem is the name of the species. It's given Felis tigris. The scientific name for the tiger is Panthera tigris. The genus is Panthera, not Felis. So therefore option C is incorrect. The correct answer is option B, Plasmodium falciparum, a protozoan pathogen causing the most serious type of malaria. So Plasmodium is a protozoan and it's a pathogen. It causes malaria, and there are there are a few species of Plasmodium which cause malaria, but Plasmodium falciparum causes the most serious malaria. So therefore all parts of this particular option are correct. So option B is the correct option for this question, which was asked in 2012. Moving on. Which one of the following animals is correctly matched with its particular taxonomic category? We have tiger, tigris species, cuttlefish, mollusca class, humans, primata family, housefly, musca order. So let's start off from option D. Housefly. Housefly's scientific name is Musca domestica. And in binomial nomenclature, Musca is the genus and domestica is the species. But in this particular option, Musca is given as the order. So therefore, option D is incorrect. Now what about option C? Humans, primata family. Primata is a class of organisms containing the primates, such as the apes and humans. So therefore, primata is not a family. That means option C is also incorrect. Now let's look at cuttlefish. Cuttlefish belong to mollusca, and it's given that mollusca is a class. However, in the animal kingdom, you will learn that mollusca is actually a phylum. It's actually above class. So that means option B is also incorrect. Now, that only leaves option A, tiger, as the correct option. Tiger, tigris, and species. The scientific name of the tiger is Panthera tigris. And in binomial nomenclature, the second name is the species. It represents the species. So therefore, option A is the correct option for this question asked in 2011. Next question. Which one of the following aspects is an exclusive characteristic of living things? So we need to find the characteristic among the four options that is exclusive to living creatures. Now, option A says isolated metabolic reactions occur in vitro. This is incorrect because it is not exclusive. Now, earlier metabolism was thought of as an exclusive characteristic, but after finding that metabolic reactions occur in vitro, metabolism is now not taken as an exclusive characteristic, so option A is incorrect. Now option B, increase in mass from inside only. Well, we know that living things have an increase in mass intrinsically, but then increase in mass from inside only, which refers to growth, is not an exclusive characteristic. So option B is incorrect. Now the reason why growth is not exclusive is that increase in mass can also happen by accumulation of material, both on surface as well as internally. So that means non-living things can also grow when you have accumulation of material, or whether you pump material inside, like for example blowing into a balloon. So that means option D is also incorrect. That leaves option C, perception of events happening in the environment and their memory, as the correct answer. This refers to consciousness, which has so far only been found in living organisms. So therefore consciousness is taken as the exclusive characteristic of living things. So therefore option C is the correct option for this question asked in 2011. Next question. ICBN stands for International Code of Botanical Nomenclature, International Congress of Biological Names, Indian Code of Botanical Nomenclature, Indian Congress of Biological Names. Which of the four expansions is correct? Let's look at our textbook. In our textbook, in page number 6, we find that it's mentioned for plants, scientific names are based on agreed principles and criteria, which are provided in the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature, and in the bracket it's given ICBN. So therefore, the correct option, the most appropriate option for this question is option A, the International Code of Botanical Nomenclature. The Congress of Biological Names is incorrect. It's the International Congress for Nomenclature that deals with both botanical as well as geological nomenclature, and scientific nomenclature happens internationally, so there is no particular code for India or for any other country. That means option C and D are incorrect. So let's look at this question. Living organisms can be unexceptionally distinguished from non-living things on the basis of their ability for interaction with the environment and progressive evolution, reproduction, growth and movement, responsiveness to touch. So progressive evolution happens in products as well, so therefore option A is not deemed correct. Now reproduction only happens in living organisms, but then there are some organisms such as mules who cannot reproduce, so it's not exclusive, so it's not an unexceptional distinguishment. So it's not an unexceptional character because there are exceptions such as mules. So therefore option B is incorrect. Option C, growth and movement. So both growth and movement happen to both living as well as non-living things. So therefore it is again not exclusive. So therefore option C is incorrect. The correct answer is option D, responsiveness to touch. Responsiveness to touch is a part of environmental interaction, which basically means that it is a part of consciousness. So when an organism is conscious, it's aware of the environment around it, and it can also relate to past experiences that helps it understand what goes where. So therefore consciousness, under which responsiveness to touch is present, means that option D is the correct option for this question. It's the most appropriate option for this question asked in 2007. Now let's look at this question. One of the most important functions of botanical gardens is that they provide a beautiful area for recreation. One can observe tropical plants. They allow ex situ conservation for germplasm, and they provide natural habitat for wildlife. So, option D, they provide natural habitat for wildlife, is incorrect because botanical gardens are dedicated for plants only. So they don't provide a natural habitat because they are themselves artificial. So option D is incorrect. Now what about option B? One can observe tropical plants there. Well, botanical gardens contain various species of plants. Now these can be local or plants imported from other places, and they can be tropical or temperate. So that means option B is not the most appropriate option. They provide a beautiful area for recreation is not appropriate because botanical gardens are mainly used for conservation as well as study. So therefore option A is again not the appropriate one. The appropriate option is option C. They allow ex situ conservation of germplasm. Now basically the term ex situ means removed from natural habitat, and that is exactly what happens. You take plants and then you grow them in containers, and then in a botanical garden you can find living plants conserved out of the natural habitat. So option C, they allow ex situ conservation of germplasm, is the correct option for this question asked in 2005. Let's look at the final question of this episode. Species are considered as. This question was asked in 2003 and it contains the following options: real basic units of classification, lowest units of classification, artificial concept of the human mind which cannot be defined, real units of classification devised by taxonomists. So let's look at the four options. Option D says real units of classification devised by taxonomists. Well, this sentence is partially true, but taxonomists devised this unit of classification after discovering the behavior of living organisms. They discovered that it's only between species that reproduction takes place, and that's why they devised that particular unit. So it is a real unit, and it was discovered by taxonomists, but it was present way before any taxonomical studies began. So option D is not appropriate. What about option C? Artificial concept of human mind which cannot be defined in absolute terms, again, is incorrect because you can define a species, because you can say that a species is a taxonomic category that contains organisms which are free to reproduce with each other. So therefore you can define a species, and it's not an artificial concept, it's a natural concept. Now what about option B, the lowest units of classification? This is incorrect because there are units lower than species such as subspecies, variants, etc. So therefore option B is incorrect. The correct answer is option A, real basic units of classification. So these units are real, and in the 7 kingdom classification they are the basic units. So real basic units of classifications is considered most appropriate. So option A is the correct option for this question asked in 2003. And that concludes this episode of NEET Preparation. We hope you found this episode interesting. For more of our useful and interesting content, don't forget to subscribe to our channel, that is Brain Blitz Audios. To learn more about this chapter and other chapters for NEET Preparation, don't forget to hit the link for the playlist in the description box down below. And if you want to access more of our latest content, then you can always hit the notifications button, the bell icon down below. So until the next webisode, take care, stay safe, bye bye for now.